my name's Kerry September. I am a hair and makeup artist and I'm based in Kent.
Hello and welcome to Art, the podcast where we get to know women from around the world of visual arts. I'm Chris Stafford and this is Season 2, Episode 6. My guest this week is Kerry September, a British hairstylist and makeup artist who has worked in theatre, film, TV, music, fashion and beyond in her 30-year career. Kerry was born in 1971 in Bridgend, Wales, the oldest of 5 children. She has 3 sisters and a brother. Her father, Gideon September, emigrated to the UK from South Africa and worked as a service engineer. Her mother, Christine Blackwell, was a housewife who, after raising her children, went back to school to become a physiotherapist. Most of Kerry's family is in psychology, and she says her work too is like being a therapist, listening to her clients share their life stories. When Kerry was 2 years old, her family moved to Twickenham, London, and she went to Chasebridge Primary School before being sent to Rosebery School, Epsom, an all-girls school for which she quickly developed a dislike. Her parents discovered she had a hearing deficit when she was just 3 years old, but Kerry rebelled against hearing aids, which she felt put her at a disadvantage, thus making school more challenging. Her mother told her she could do anything she wanted, so Kerry decided to pursue her studies at Epsom Art College, followed by 2 years at the London School of Fashion. As a teenager, Kerry was absorbed in American TV culture, and so her parents agreed to let her attend Camp America in Pennsylvania. After 10 weeks' work, for which she was paid a mere $150, Kerry and her new friends spent 4 months travelling until her cash ran out, and she returned to the UK. She found her first real job in the wig department in West End Theatre, which proved the foundation to her career. She did makeup for music videos such as Prodigy's Smack My Bitch Up, Smashing Pumpkins' Everlasting Gaze, and Manic Street Preachers' Why So Sad. Kerry has done makeup for a variety of photographers, actors, artists, politicians and celebrities. Nowadays, though, she's also focusing on her health and fitness while studying quantum biology and looking forward to her next adventure. Kerry lives in Kent, in England. Kerry, welcome to the Art Podcast.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, when I think about hair and makeup, I don't automatically think of it as visual arts. But since I've been doing the show, it's amazing how many different genres, different occupations fall under visual arts. It isn't just about painting or photography. There's so much to it, isn't there?
There is so many different avenues in hair and makeup. I mean, I fell into this industry by accident, but it has, I've used lots of mediums. In the beginning, I started doing body painting. So yeah, there's lots of different aspects of hair and makeup.
Something, as you say, you fell into. But tell us what you're doing now, because it sounds like the career has gone where you ultimately wanted it to go once you discovered that there was a pathway for you.
It's funny because I've been doing my job for 30 years, and I would say since the last 5 years, I've been kind of coming out of the industry, but still have really valuable clients that I love working with, and I love working with talented people. So if somebody, comes to me with a job and it really interests me, then I will do it. But I'm kind of changed my whole career. I'm doing different things at the moment, but I love my job. I love what I do.
What's your favourite aspect of doing hair and makeup, Kerry?
When you work with a really talented team and you come away with the most amazing end result, whether it be a still or a little bit of film, it just makes me buzz. And that's enough for me, just to have that little visual at the end of a job.
And do you get a brief before you start, or do you know by the lighting and the project what that is going to demand?
In the beginning, when I didn't really know what I was doing, I'd always ask for a brief. And if it's a big job, you get a brief. I love a brief because it means everybody knows what they're doing. And on the day, you know, it all comes together and it runs smoothly and everybody gets what they want out of it. But a lot of the time now, because I've been doing my job so long, I think people they book me for me and that I turn up and they just trust me to do my own thing, which is lovely.
And in terms of, you know, your palette, you have a complete palette like any artist, right? What you can use for that job.
Yeah.
Is that the challenge where you start, right? Where you go to on that palette? Is that the first challenge?
I mean, you know what? When you practice something over 30 years, in the beginning, I did find it really hard. But hair and makeup artists work so differently. I mean, I'm not a massive fan, I never have been, of knowing the names of my products. I am an artist at heart. I went to art college and I do use a palette in my head. So I can look at somebody's face and I can look at a shade of, you know, a base, and I know exactly what colour to put on. I know it's without names or anything. It's just done in tones and shades. But some people work completely differently to me, and the next person will work in a completely different way. But I do work with a palette, and some makeup artists physically have a palette. I don't have a palette. I use the back of my hands, or I use the warmth of my skin. It's a really good palette.
Ah, the warmth of your skin. Yeah, I can imagine that. That's the foundation, no pun intended, right?
Well, it is, right? Exactly.
Well, let's go back to the beginning, because you said you came up into the business accidentally, but it's an interesting accent that you have there, because you live in the south of England now, but you were actually born across the Severn Bridge in Bridgend, Wales. So how did you lose that accent?
I know. Well, I was only there till I was 2. My dad had a temporary job there, and then we moved back to London. Why am I saying back to London? I moved to London with my parents and kind of stayed there for about 30 years. But I was only there temporarily. But I do go back there. I feel like I have a connection to my roots. I was there recently, actually, in the summer, visiting my sister. That's another story, but I have a sister that was in Wales and we reconnected, and I do actually go back there and feel really like there's a pull. I feel really content there. I love it.
It's a very peaceful place. I totally identify with that. I love South Wales. Now, talk about your family a little bit. You're one of 5 children.
Yes.
Do you have a lot of family still in Wales then, or did they all come east?
No, all my family are scattered around England, and we were all scattered abroad, but we're all now back on UK turf. So just my sister, who lives in Wales now, she is a sister that I didn't know I had, which I found out 7 years ago. And it turned out really well. So, yeah, my brothers and sisters are all quite close by now, which is lovely.
Do you want to tell us about that discovery?
I actually talked about it on social media. It just blew me away. It was quite amazing. I got a letter from her 7 years ago saying that she believed that we share the same father. And we talked for about 5 years before we met. And then I went up to Barry Island where she lives and we met, and it was like I'd known her for years. And the crazy thing is that she is a makeup artist, the same as me. She's been a makeup artist, and her husband is in the fitness industry. He's like a world champion boxer, and the father of my child was a boxer. And there was a lady that one of my clients who I worked with quite regularly, I learned that she trained my sister. And it was just, and also I realised that I'd met my sister before. I'd met my sister in Southampton when I was working on a touring theatre show, and I had a break and I'd gone down to get some lunch. And back in those days, I used to eat quite badly, a lot of rubbish. And I went into Pizza Hut and I saw this girl, and I remember thinking, wow, they're, like doppelgangers. I kind of knew about doppelgangers. Is that my doppelganger? I looked at her and thought, my God, she looks like me. It was the really strangest feeling. And all I could do was like lift up my hand and just wave at her, and I couldn't speak. And she did the same, right back to me. And when we met, I spent the whole day with her and we were catching up. And I said to her, were you in Southampton in this year? And she said, well, yes, I used to work on the QE2, and my ship used to dock in Southampton every 2 weeks. And she even recalls the moment she was in Pizza Hut with her ex-boyfriend and her best friend, because she was, grabbing something to eat before she got back on the ship. It's just nuts. Absolutely crazy. But it's not crazy, because I study quantum biology now. I know that it's quantum entanglement. We were just living on these parallel lives, really. But it was amazing, and I'm really lucky to have her in my life.
How did that actually come about, that she wrote to you? What was the catalyst for that, Kerry?
So I'd been on Ancestry.com a couple of years ago, one Christmas, and I got obsessed. And I think, my surname, September, there's not many of us in this country. It's quite common in South Africa, where my dad's from. So she didn't really have to look that hard. And she found the details on Ancestry.com or on the electoral register.
And she took the initiative then to reach out to you?
She did, and it was a really beautiful, mindful letter. And I decided to contact her. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And so that's extended your family. Tell me about the other siblings that you have.
So I'm the eldest of 5. There's myself, my sister Debbie, my brother Jody, and then 10 years later, my mum and dad had my sister Sophie and my brother Sam. So crazy household, but very fun. Up and down. It wasn't boring, put it that way. And Christmases were, they were great fun.
What were your earliest memories then as a child, Kerry, when you look back now and dig deep into the archives? What were the very first things that you remember?
I think the 70s, that was it 76? We had that scorching hot summer, and all I remember was just being outside on my bike, riding around, making kites. We all made kites out of black bin liners. We would hide in the allotment. The grass was really long. The girls' brigade would be next door. You could hear their drums, and they were wearing white gloves, and I'd peer over the fence and I'd be really jealous. I wanted to join the girls' brigade. It was the summer, 70s summer, and it was just pure freedom.
And your parents, you mentioned there, your father was from South Africa, Gideon September. He was in coin slot business.
Well, he was. He started off emptying the telescopes on Brighton Pier, and then he got a job as a service engineer, emptying machines. You remember, like the Space Invading machines in the 80s, like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and all those kind of track and field. He got into that business. So as kids, we were so lucky because all the machines they used to be in our garage. So my dad used to fix them and we used to get to play them. And then he would go out and fix them at various different locations, and we would go to work with him, and he'd give us the keys to empty the machines. And I can still smell the metal now when I'm talking about it. And we would help him count money, and it was fun.
Now, what brought him from South Africa?
He is one of 5 kids as well, and I think he came over in 1957. So apartheid was probably is still going on. And I think my granddad just wanted to come to England as, I don't know, for a better life. They were all in the shoe repairing industry. So he set up a shoe repairing shop in Peckham called Stiletto Express, actually, which I find hilarious.
I love it.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I know. And all these things I've kind of really only just found out, in the last 10 years, because my granddad and nanny just wouldn't really talk about South Africa that lot. There was a lot at that time. There was a lot that went on, and I think it was quite hard to talk about. It was quite suppressive. But I just remember big gatherings at my nan's house where all the family would come over and there would be tons of food.
So that was your father's parents then? They came over with him?
Yeah, they came over on a ship. I think it took about 7 or 8 weeks. And they moved to Crystal Palace. And my nanny worked in a sweet shop, and my granddad was, I don't really know the timings, but they moved to Crystal Palace, and granddad had a shoe repair shop in Peckham High Street.
Do you ever get to go to South Africa at all?
I actually went there on a job with my dear friend who is a fashion stylist editor. She flew me to South Africa when I lived in Thailand. I'd taken a year out of my job and I happened to be in Thailand, and she called me and she said, "We're going to South Africa. Can you do it?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So it's in Cape Town, and I went back to where my dad was born. I went back to Woodstock in Cape Town, which is the Cape coloured area, which is a bit like Notting Hill now. It's all been kind of done up and multicoloured. I mean, it's beautiful. And I really, really loved going back to where my dad was born, because it made me feel like I could see where I had come from. And myself and my friend Dee Dee, who's also a stylist, we were sitting on a wall in Woodstock, just chatting. And then this tour bus came along, and this man had a microphone, and he was like telling the tourists, "Now this is where all the Cape coloured and the Blick people live together." And he was sort of pointing at myself and Dee Dee, and I thought, wow, you think that we live here? So it was a real testament to where where my roots are. It was really nice.
Now, what about your mother? Tell us about the story of Christine Blackwell, I believe her name is. Now, she was a housewife, but she was also a consultant for a doctor in psychology. So what was her original career then? And was that before she had a family that she did that?
No, my mum had me she had me quite young, all of us quite young. I think she had 3 kids under the age of 4, where by the time she was 21, I think she said she spent most of her time in tears. But she was a housewife. And then when I was about 17, she went back to school and did a Open University and trained as a psychotherapist. My sister's a psychotherapist. She's a doctor of psychology. And my other sister is a couples counselling psychotherapist. So my whole family are kind of, psychotherapy, therapy, everything's therapy. And I suppose I do that when people sit in my chair, but I just haven't got the qualification for it.
No doubt you're a good listener, I'm sure.
I'm a good listener, but it's interesting because when you do people's hair, they talk to you. When you do people's makeup, they tell you a lot. And when you do people's nails, you give them manicure, they tell you everything. And I think it's the level at which you are seated and the psychology of where you're positioned with them in relation to how comfortable they feel. It's really interesting.
Yeah, because I guess when you're doing their hair and maybe their makeup, they have a mirror so they can reflect on themselves. But when you're doing their nails, they're probably just watching you.
They're looking at you. They're kind of, they're looking down at you. So I suppose it must feel more comfortable. And a lot of people like having their nails done. I've done quite a few politicians, and I remember her name, Anne Widdecombe, wasn't it? I did her nails, and she absolutely loved it. It was her favourite thing. Yeah, some people love having their nails done.
So let's talk about a little bit more about your parents and your relationship, with being part of a big family. Who did you most spend the time with and have the best relationships with?
I would probably say that my brother and sister were more together and I was a little bit of a bossy boots. And then it would flip because two's company, three's a crowd. So there would be a lot of arguing and a lot of loving. But then when my little sister Sophie was born 10 years later, I mean, I think she was just like a doll. I used to braid her hair, put her hair up. She hated it, but I would hang out with her a lot. And we're really close. We're really close. We're still really close.
And how about with your mum and dad?
Mum and dad, children of the 70s. I mean, we travelled a lot. Mum and dad was just every summer they had like 11 VW camper vans and Beatles together in their time together. So we would go for the whole of the summer holidays, they would just drive to France, Spain, Switzerland, Italy, Germany. We were really lucky. We were like shown that we could, look, when you you're shown how far you can go, it's almost like a metaphor for life. So you kind of apply that to your later life, I feel. I've always felt like I can go much further than if I was in one place and I'd never left where I was, where I grew up in. So in the 70s, we were really, really lucky to travel. And we would just go to campsites and just move from one campsite to the other, or we were like nomad family, really. It was hectic. It was fun. But it was just free. It was very free. I think kids of the 70s, it was very free.
So lots of great adventures then. And what about school? What did you enjoy about school?
I loved art. I went to school in Twickenham next to the rugby ground, Chasebridge School, and I had the best time at that school. I loved school, but I did struggle because I had hearing aid, which was so big that clipped onto the front of my shirt. So I couldn't really hear a lot of what was going on. And this hearing aid was analog. So it was a really rubbish hearing aid. And I remember this particular teacher, we were doing a nativity play and I didn't know any of the words. And it's really hard for a 5-year-old to keep up, I think. I just felt really self-conscious. And I think my teacher, lovely teacher, Mrs. Rogers, spotted this. And I remember really clearly that she wrote out every single word of Away in a Manger. And then I stood on the podium and I think I probably sang it the loudest than anybody because I was so happy that I knew the words. So yeah, that always stuck with me. It was a good school, really, really good school.
Which school was that?
Chasebridge in Twickenham.
Chasebridge. Okay, so that was the high school or? That was
a primary, and then you go to middle school, and then I went on to an all-girls school in Twickenham, but I wasn't there very long because my parents decided to move. We needed a bigger house. There was 5 of us. We were growing. I think there were 3 girls and my nan all sharing a room, and my brother had his own room because he was a boy. So we needed a bigger house. So we moved to Epsom in Surrey, and I hated it. I really didn't like it. But I think the age of 13 is a really bad time to move. But I went to an all-girls school there, and it was just, I didn't enjoy it at all. I found it really hard, really hard. It was horrific, actually.
Oh, dear. I'm curious as to what age you were when you realised you had a hearing deficit, Kerry.
I think Mum noticed when I was about 3, because I would just ignore everybody. And then I had hearing aids when I was 5, and then it was so awful, I just refused to wear it. So I went through the whole of school without wearing hearing aids, which I think is why my time at school was so horrible, because I really I missed out a lot. I couldn't really hear what was going on, and I just kind of was surviving, and I managed to wing it, but I had to work extra hard.
And why did you hate it at the girls' school? Could you get into sports and other things which didn't have the same demands on your hearing as classroom activities?
I mean, put it this way, if I was at a mixed school, I probably wouldn't have passed my exams. But the girls, they were a little bit catty, and the area was quite, Epsom was a mixture. You did have a lot of girls with how many horses have you got? And I come from a school where it was so grounded and so like, people were just real, you know. I love real people. And I just found the people in Epsom, it was a middle class town, and I just didn't get along with it very well.
Did you get into sports, and did you ride horses?
No, never rode horses. I did try, but I went to the stables and got asked to hold a horse, and his name was King, and he was the biggest horse in the stables, and he bolted, and I was holding on to him, and I never went back. But I did get back on a horse when I went to South Africa, but that was because it was on a beach, a much nicer environment. And I thought, if I fall off, I fall off in the sand. But yeah, I did get into sports. I loved swimming. I played hockey, rounders, and netball. I was quite sporty at school.
Do you still enjoy sports?
I mean, I absolutely love fitness. That's kind of where I am in my life at the moment. I absolutely love anything to do with health and fitness. Probably because I'm at an age where, you know, I really decided that I need to look after myself and take care of my body.
Now, when you were growing up with having sisters as well, are you that little girl that used to dig into your mother's lipstick and have makeup?
Oh my God, no, I really wasn't. I didn't wear any makeup, but I'll tell you what I did do. And I've apologised that I used to sneak into my sister's room, get a screwdriver, unscrew the lock on her wardrobe and steal her clothes, and then I would put them back, and then sometimes I wouldn't. And I can't believe I did that. But yeah, there was a lot of rivalry between myself and my sister. 18 months apart, we were very, very, we did clash quite a bit, but you know, we love each other to death now.
So you weren't playing dress up and makeup then?
No, not at all. I was in my room, even at 15 years old. My sister was going out, wearing makeup, going to the school discos, and I would be in my room building something that used to be called, I don't know if you've heard of it, Chris, it's called Linker. It's like a model, they're like modelling sets where you pour the plaster of Paris into these brick molds, and then you build houses and you paint them. I mean, I was obsessed, really sad. So I was such a late starter to everything. And I think it was because I was a little bit overweight and very self-conscious teenager, and I never really wanted to go out. And because of my hearing, I was so happy in my own world, just in my bedroom creating.
So art really was an escape for you then. And yeah. You said you were enjoying that in school. At what point did you decide then, when you were getting ready to leave school to graduate from high school, that you wanted to go into fashion? You went to the London College of Fashion, so that was a big decision. Well,
I went, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then I remember my mum saying to me, Kerry, you can do whatever you want to do. And I say that to my son now. I think they've always stuck with me, those words. But actually all I wanted to do was get to America. I'd grown up on American TV, Chips, Starsky and Hutch, and all those American Superman, Saturday morning TV. I just wanted to go to America. So I did Camp America. No, actually, I went to art college before I did Camp America. I went to Epsom Art College to do a 3D design, a BTEC in three-dimensional design. And then I did that and I loved it. I went to college at 16, so I couldn't wait to leave school. And then I went to Camp America and did the whole summer on summer camp. And I actually can't believe my mum let me go to America at 17 when there was no email, no mobile phone, nothing. I mean, she was traumatized. But I've told her, actually, thank you for letting me go, because it was one of the most amazing experiences. it really opened my eyes to other things going on in the world. So, yeah. And then I travelled for about 4 months afterwards. I mean, I just didn't want to come home. I did the whole, the camp was in Pennsylvania, in a little tiny town called Hancock. I mean, it was a bit like Friday the 13th or MASH. We were in these kind of wooden huts and we had to live with the kids. So I was living in a hut with about 10, 14-year-olds. And I was only 17 myself. So it was quite full on. And I taught theatrical studies, making props, theatre props. And coincidentally, I found out about 5 years ago, well, I didn't realise, I remember the kid, but Adam Levine from Maroon 5 was one of the kids on the camp, and he would always be in the barn playing his guitar, and he formed a band back then with the kids that were on the camp. But it was a really beautiful summer. It was so hot, and I think I was growing up. I was growing up.
What year was that then, Kerry?
Camp America was about 1989. Yeah, it was the year of the Gulf War. Do you remember the year of the Gulf War? Because the Gulf War broke out when I was there.
Of course.
Was that 89? It was around about that time. And then when you finish camp, you get a little bit of pocket money, which was $150 for 10 weeks work. It was hard work. And we all, group of us, put our money in together to buy a Cadillac, a really old banged up Cadillac. And we drove from Pennsylvania all the way down to Texas, actually stopping at Virginia and Tennessee. Basically, this guy, Kenny, that was a counsellor, he drove all the way and he spat tobacco into a bottle all the way. I mean, I was terrified of him. I was only 17, but he was just like, he was a real good egg, but he was terrifying. He was about 6'7". And he dropped off each counsellor on the way home. And we just all had this massive adventure. Just, I suppose it's like the American dream. I didn't realise then, but and I remember being in Pennsylvania driving, and then the air was getting hotter and hotter. And then by the time you reach Texas, you roll down the windows. It's like a hot air dryer coming through the windows. And I stayed in Texas. I stayed in San Marcos, Texas, because I just loved the whole university culture there. And I remember there was some sort of river that, you know, you jump on a big tire and just go around the river. I mean, it was nuts. It was just one of the best summers of my life.
What were your biggest takeaways then in terms of your own personal development?
From travelling, I think it just gave me the bug to travel. I love travelling. I love adventure. I love new things. I love being thrown into situations where, you know, you don't have very much. Like I know in my job, if my luggage went missing, I would never care. I'd learned not to care. I'd always carry a very small hand luggage with just what I need. I'm a light traveller and I like adventures and I love learning.
But eventually you had to come back to the UK. So how did that go? What sense of direction did you have in your own journey after that experience?
Well, I ran out of money because back then I think you reversed your charges, and my mum and dad were like, you have to come home. So I went home and I got a job in a video shop working 12-hour shifts. And I actually got the sack because my mum said to me, I'm really stuck for childcare today. And my brother was about 4. And she said, and I said, well, I'll just take him into work with me. And she didn't really know that I was going to get in trouble. Probably, I can't remember. It was a long time ago, but I did take him into work and I got caught and I got sacked. And then I was I had a dental appointment. I was sitting in the dentist and I saw this leaflet for London College of Fashion, and it said theatrical studies course or something to do with theatre. And I thought, oh, well, that looks interesting. I'll do that. So I applied for it and went for the interview. And at the time, I used to bite my nails really badly. And the lady that was interviewing was like an old BBC kind of makeup artist, and she picked up on it. But the girl that went in before me was wearing gloves, and she pulled it and she said, take off your gloves. I mean, it was so different back then, but she said, take off your gloves. And this girl also had bitten nails, and she said, oh, I'm so sorry, you will not be coming to this college. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm horrified, because I was in this London College of Fashion in Oxford Street, and I was so excited, and I just really wanted to get into this college. And it came to my turn, and I said, and she said, you bite your nails? And I said, yes, but I promise you I will grow them. And she gave me a chance. I couldn't believe it. So I got in there, and that was 2-year course, learning how to do wigs and theatrical makeup. But I learned stuff, but you really don't know until you start getting out in the real world and practicing on real people rather than dolly heads. It's a bit of a shock to the system. I mean, I think they teach things now like how to manage your money and, a lot more practical stuff. Back then we had half a real person to practice a man's haircut. So guys would volunteer to come in on Oxford Street, or they'd grab them off the street, and you'd have one girl cutting half of the side of his head and the other girl cutting the other half. It was nuts. Oh, they must have been running out the door for sure.
Students always need models.
They really do, yeah.
And during that time, then, what was it that was exciting you? Because you were opening doors to a new world.
Oh, I mean, it was so much fun. We did a lot of prosthetic work. So, we would make each other up as animals, tigers, pandas, and then one day we'd be making each other up to look like men, and then we'd all just leave the college theatre. We'd leave the college and get the tube home looking like a bloke. And I remember, some of the things, we were all in a group and we were sitting there with our beards and our long hair, getting the most weirdest looks, but it was just fun. And then, getting ready for our final show, everybody got really close. They were working in one room. They were sculpturing. We were making these massive clay sculptures so that we could mold our prosthetics, that people would actually have to get inside, and we'd have to design how they would breathe and whether they'd be hot. I mean, we didn't really have the materials, and it was quite horrendous for the models, but the show was exciting, and it gave you a taste of, working on a real show, which I went on to do later, but it was very, very different to college.
I guess if you walked out of the school onto Oxford Street, people wouldn't think anything of you being made up, being in the middle of theatreland.
I think back then, when we were just starting out trying to make each other look like men, I don't think we did the best job. It wasn't like Mrs. Doubtfire. It was like it had gone slightly wrong, and I think people cottoned on to that. Yeah.
So what kind of opportunities were coming your way then, Kerry, whilst you were in that college?
I wanted to do theatre. I was right in the middle of Oxford Street, Soho, and I just literally took my CV and banged on the doors of the stage door and gave them CV. And I managed to get myself a job. I went for a job on Grease with Craig McLaughlin that used to be in Neighbours. Actually, I can't tell this story. It's nothing to do with me, but I gave the job to another makeup artist, and she ended up getting sacked. But I'm not going to go there. But what I will tell you is, when I went for that interview, I wasn't wearing hearing aids, and at the time I had another job making wigs for knotting hairs, single hairs into wigs. And I lasted about a week because it really damages your eyesight. So I'd gone for this interview and I'd misheard the wage. At the time I was on £90 a week, and I'd said in the interview, can I just ask you what the wage is, because I need to know whether I can support myself, because back then it was like living in London, you needed money. And they said, oh, it's £70 a week. And I thought, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to turn it down, but I can recommend someone. But then the girl that I recommended told me 2 weeks later, she's like, oh my God, it's so amazing, I'm earning £270 a week. So I'd misheard the 200, And it was at that point that I decided I've got to get hearing aids. I've got to sort this out. I can't just keep winging this. And so I didn't get that job, but I did get a job in Frith Street at the Prince Edward Theatre doing Crazy for You, which was a Gershwin all singing, all dancing showgirl show. And it was just, I mean, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it now. It was so amazing, like walking into a theatre and having never been to a big musical. And actually, I hate musicals. I don't mind working on them, but when I watched them, I pretty much have walked out of every single one. But this one was a real special one because it was Gershwin and it had substance, and the girls were tap dancing, and it was just good old fashioned entertainment. I loved that job. And then I left to go on tour. I got another job on Joseph with a really amazing crew touring around England. And after that, I just, it was kind of approaching the 90s and the whole rave scene was happening in London. And I decided at the time, I was painting UV backdrops, ultraviolet backdrops for clubs. So I decided to save up enough money for a year and take a whole year off and just go raving and partying. And that's what I did. And I loved it. It was I just thought there's something quite exciting happening here and I don't want to miss it. So I spent the next kind of year getting paid as well, just to hire out my backdrops. I was doing it with a boyfriend at the time. And I also started face painting in clubs. And it was good fun. It was really good fun. And then I decided I needed to buckle down and do some work. So I applied to the Prince's Trust, and I went before a panel and I had to present a business plan and stand in front of the panel and tell them what I wanted to do. And so that's where I picked up my makeup skills, and they awarded me £1,500, and also a little grant for being hard of hearing. And I bought a 2-seater van, my first mobile phone, and a makeup kit. And then I just started. I made a website. It was just about had a computer in 1997. I think we had our first computer, and my boyfriend at the time helped build a website. And it was more word of mouth and who you knew. So, me going out, being on the scene and meeting people and just kind of like, hey, do you want to come and work on this? Or I did have my mum's best friend, Sue Yardley. She is amazing. She's just literally retired, actually. She gave me my first job, my first foot in the door. She ran a camera agency, and every now and then they would ask for a makeup artist. So my first job was for B&Q, and I had to tan up this guy that had to stand in a shower. And bearing in mind, I didn't assist anybody. Normally makeup artists assist people and they learn that way, but I didn't. I just threw myself right in there. And this guy had tan lines on his, tan lines on his bum. And the director said, I need you to fill in his tan lines. And I was like, oh my God, okay. So I was literally crouched between his bum cheeks while the whole production crew came in to brief me. And it was probably one of the most first embarrassing, scenario at the beginning of my career. But I did a good job and they loved me. And then I remember very clearly I had my very first job with Kirsty Walk, who presents Newsnight. And I remember Kirsty is one of the most amazing women I've ever worked with, actually. And I remember going in there blind thinking, I don't know how to do this because I don't wear makeup myself, but I am creative and I can draw. But I'm just not very good. I don't wear makeup. So I feel like I did that whole job blind. I did her hair, I did her makeup. And her producer came out and said, wow, she looks amazing and she loves it. And I ended up doing quite a lot of shoots with Kirsty. And because she presented Newsnight, the content would be so interesting. I got to listen to Quentin Tarantino talk about the making of Kill Bill, Pete Doherty talking about all the things that he went through. And, you know, it wasn't boring. I wasn't doing like a girly girl job. I was kind of more interested in the documentary side, this stuff that, yeah, I think everyone would find that interesting.
Yeah, this was fascinating time for you then, because you were discovering what was really possible in this world.
Yes, but I didn't have the confidence. I wasn't that confident back then. I think I had a lot of anxiety, but also I was always excited and happy to be there, but I always felt like I was in the wrong job, even though I used to give it 150%, maybe more. I did struggle with the whole celebrity world a little bit. I couldn't understand why.
In what sense?
I couldn't understand why the focus was on one person, because to me they were just like all of us, you know. We're all, and yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. Even now, I prefer to work with real people. I prefer to get down and dirty and be creative with really talented people. That really gets my juices flowing. I mean, if I work with celebrities that really a little bit kind of mindless, I really do struggle. I don't enjoy it. There's parts of my job that I absolutely love, and there's parts of my job, like anyone, that I really don't enjoy.
Was that perhaps because of their ego and their sense of self-importance for the position that they were in?
Yes.
That put them maybe, you know, on a different level to you and most people?
Yeah, I think so. And probably, you know, maybe my hearing, but also not quite grasping why any of us should be treated differently. There's a hierarchy. There's a lot of hierarchy.
Were you treated like I want to say second-class citizen, but you know what I mean? That it was that they looked down on you because you were doing a service, you were providing them with a service.
Some jobs, yes. You know what? In this job, you work with people that respect you as an artist, and you work with people that do treat you like a skivvy. And that is the reason why, you know, in my whole 30-year career, I've taken 3 whole years off. I worked on a really intense job in 2000. I was a personal makeup artist to an actress, and it was for a production, E! Entertainment, and it was following her around on the jet set. I mean, it was incredible. We went all over Europe, yachts, private planes, falling out of nightclubs. Well, I mean, I wasn't. We weren't allowed to. We weren't drinking. We were working. We weren't allowed to go to bed until she finished partying. And girl with a big heart. Honestly, she was a girl with a big heart. But I saw a side of the industry that really, really threw me when I saw people throwing, you know, bottles of Cristal all over each other. And I just come from sort of India or Thailand on my travels, where it was the complete opposite of what I'd seen a week ago. I really struggled with it. So when I came back from that job, I took a year off. I just think I needed to recalibrate and get a sense of myself back, because that in that world is just so far from reality. It can, you know, some people get lost, and some people thrive in it. They love it, but it's not for me.
But haven't you found, though, during the course of your profession, Kerry, that makeup artists are gaining more recognition now? They're credited.
Yeah, I think some makeup artists think they are celebrities. And I really believe that I have done really well in my job, because I am quite normal and quite down to earth. And if you ask me a question, I'll tell you directly what I think in the nicest way. But I think every makeup artist finds their clients to work with, and I have found my people. The people that I have worked for and the people I work for now are of substance. Yeah.
What's your clientele now? What is the difference in your daily routine?
I mean, I work for a couple of clients. One of them is a cashmere jumper company. I absolutely love the team. They are just really good fun, and they work hard, and we get beautiful shots. And I love cashmere. I love cashmere jumpers. What can I say? I've always loved cashmere, and I love clothes more than makeup. And then my other client, who I've worked for over 20 years, is in skincare, but she's taken me all over the world, going through the jungle, looking for Camellia, which is a ingredient that she needed to source for her products, or going to Australia or going to Turkey and sourcing rose petals from a tiny little factory in the middle of nowhere where it was just smell of like rose petals, and, going to Sardinia. I did a job with her where we went to all the blue zones. I mean, those are the kind of jobs that I think make my job. That's why I love my job, because you're learning something and you're seeing real life stuff going on, rather than working in a studio on a reality show, which I just don't have any interest in doing anymore.
But it was useful for your resume, probably, to have that, and theatre as well.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. When I first started out, I was getting these amazing gigs. I was working in the music industry. My first gig was with The Prodigy. Then I started getting, all these bands, Smashing Pumpkins, Manic Street Preachers. But it was more for my, I was good at it, and I got asked back, and I really loved it. And a lot of those people in the bands were so down to earth. It's more the people around them that I call them chihuahuas. It's yeah, but fun. Had so much fun, so many adventures on my job of traveling and working with amazing artists. But it's not real. For me, it's not real. What I absolutely loved working in the blue zones, traveling to Sardinia, traveling to Greece. We were supposed to go to Japan. That didn't happen. And just like seeing these ladies that were 111 that were in the garden cooking dinner for a family of like 25 and climbing trees and getting apples. And I love all that stuff. I love it. And it's taught me now, like the way I'm trying to learn about quantum biology and quantum physics and health and fitness and the sun, and how, these ladies that were literally sowing the earth and planting everything and eating everything that they grown and in the sun, and longevity of life. That's what makes me tick today now. That's what I love doing in my life now. I am on a journey of health and fitness, and getting myself in the most well state I can be, and cleaning my brain.
And along this journey, you met our previous guest, Natalie Watts, who told me I had to have you on the show, and I can see why.
Oh, do you know what? I think Natalie was probably one of the 3 or 4 people on that job that kept me sane. Love her to bits. I mean, I think we worked together for about 2 to 3 months, I think. And I love that she recommended me for this. I was so flattered. And she's an absolute babe, and she's a grafter. I mean, I when I used to watch her working, I was in awe. Because again, at that time, I think I probably wasn't I always felt like I wasn't doing the right thing of what I was supposed to do in my life. And Natalie just seems so confident. And I'm sure Natalie would say, she has her days, and we all do. But that job was wild. That's all I'm going to say. That was a wild job. but it was a lot of fun. It was up and down, and it was exhausting. But the camaraderie of, this little group of people, that we all kept each other going. And I do love being part of a team that works well together. That I do love. It's when it's disconnected, when you're working with teams that are disconnected, it doesn't satisfy me. I get really quite frustrated. But if you're working in a team that is so well oiled, and it's like bang, bang, bish, bash, and, it's just a buzz. It's a buzz.
You mentioned earlier that you don't wear makeup ever.
No, it's weird, isn't it? I think all the best makeup artists don't wear makeup.
And why is that?
I was trying to sort of think about this, because my mum had one little palette from Marks and Spencer's, and it was like a tin with a purple, a blue, a pink, and a green. I think I tried it and thought, well, that looks rubbish. I do swear a lot. I'm trying not to swear here, but it looks really, really bad. And I never really got into it. I didn't like the feel of it on my skin. I didn't see the point of mask. I felt like it was a mask. And I just, if a woman sits in my chair and she's had no work done, and she's makeup free and she's happy, then that to me is a face map to tell me that she is the most confident woman in the room. And I love that. I love that kind of health from the inside, and makeup and hair. Ironically, I love making people look beautiful. I like making things look beautiful. Like this is my third reno now. I'm making my house look beautiful. I just have a thing about making things look beautiful. And maybe it was because when I was a teenager, I didn't think I was beautiful. I was a dumpy, shy teenager. And I actually remember working in a retail shop and seeing a picture. There was a big poster of Mandy Smith. I think she was about to get married to Bill Wyman at the time. And she 13. I think she was. Maybe he started dating her when she was 13. But I remember looking at her, thinking, my God, she is so beautiful. But she was natural, apart from her blonde bleach hair. But I like the no makeup look. I think I just love seeing real skin.
Because behind that is real confidence and self-worth then. I think
represents
so much to you.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. It's and also, I'm hard of hearing, so I read the world visually. Like, I listen with my eyes. I read body language. I lip read. So when I lip read, what a lot of people don't realise is that, especially guys, when you're looking at them lip reading, looking at somebody's lips is a sign of sexual. It's a sexual. What's the word, Chris? It's like a sexual language, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely.
And and it gets read in the wrong way. And it's like, no, I don't fancy you. I'm just trying to listen and understand to what you're saying. And I look at people very intensely. And so, yeah, I would look at people I'm very good at reading body language. So my whole life, I kind of lived watching people's body language, and I can read people's body language across the room, and I can read lips across the room.
But in terms of other visual art forms, you said that you had painted in the past and you sculptured as well. Do you have time for any of that now?
I don't paint anymore. I should. I get creative with my house. I have in lockdown, my builder did a runner, and I had to learn very fast how to take down lath and plaster and rebuild walls. And I have a HND in ceramics, so I love doing sort of like fixing stuff and making the walls look good again. And do you know what? It's just, if I was a bloke, I'd be a builder, or I'd be a plasterer, or something of a trade where you get a really beautiful finish. So I suppose I love working with clay, but I don't really get time. I should make time, but I don't have any desire to do that anymore. Creatively, I think I get it from doing up the house that I'm in right now. I find it very therapeutic.
Your partner Richard is a carpenter and decorator, so maybe there's a business partnership on the horizon.
Well, I didn't know him when my builder did the runner, and I met him 9 months ago, and he happened to be a carpenter, and I was over the moon. I was like, well, this is just brilliant, isn't it? And we just do up stuff together. And it's, he's taught me how to build wardrobes. He's taught me how to hang doors. He's taught me he's about to teach me how to plumb in a toilet. I mean, it's just brilliant. I buzz off that stuff. Simples.
And where do you want your career to go now? Realistically, Kerry, with all the experience that you have?
Do you know what, Chris? I really don't know where I'm going, but it feels right. And I'm just going to go with the flow and see where life takes me. And that is how I've lived my life for the last 5 years since I moved to the South Coast. I burnt out in my job. I was working so bloody hard. And I decided that I was going to change it all. I got really, really unwell. And I was in the middle of buying a house, and the house fell through that I wanted. And while I was trying to sort all that out, I thought, do you know what? Sod it. I'm going to take myself off my son to India for a month and Vietnam for a month. And I did. Probably crazy. I was in the middle of a house sale trying to claw back this house. And it was when I was in India, the sunsets. I'm a sucker for a sunset. I've always been a sucker for sunlight. And I had an epiphany. I thought, that's it. I'm going to move. I'm going to pack up and I'm going to move to the seaside and just quit my job for a little while and have some time out. So that's what I did. We moved down to the South Coast, and I remember getting in touch with a medium, actually, and I never do that kind of thing because I really needed guidance. So I was on my own. I've been a single mum for 10 years and I've loved every minute of it. It's been a real journey. And I just needed some guidance, and I was living down there on my own. I didn't know anybody that lived down here. I knew one girl, Cynthia. She was a stylist, still an amazing friend. And I asked her for guidance, and she said, you're going to have a lot of free time. And I remember thinking, oh my God, but I need to earn money. And I think I just surrendered. I surrendered, and I just let things kind of, I just rolled with it and went to the beach and started doing up my house and got into fitness and got onto Instagram, got into social media, which now I'm sort of like trying to put my phone away and have a little bit of distance from it. But met this community of people on Instagram, and the amount that you can learn on Instagram, I've taken so many courses and I've taught myself to edit. And so I edit my little videos on Instagram, and I just love kind of, it's just health and fitness, something in health and fitness, because it feels good. And I finally feel confident and happy in my skin because I'm healthy.
And you're without the pressure that I'm sure came with your job.
Yeah, it's stressful, you know. I mean, it's I used to buzz off the stress. The busier I was, the buzzier I'd be. But I don't think you realise you never take a holiday because you're worried if the client's going to call you and you're going to miss out, they're going to book someone else. But once I went away, the 3 years that I took off, I realised I went off to Thailand for a year. And when I got back, nothing had changed. And I thought, it's fine, because I'm still getting phone calls for jobs. I had clients ringing me, and I was back into work like it had never happened. So, you go along and you learn in life, and there's no pressure. I'm really chilled out these days. And I think it's because I'm healthy and I have a cleaner brain and I can think straight. And a lot more knowledgeable.
So if you look back then, Kerry, what would have been the major milestones, those pivotal landmarks, so to speak, of your career that really were turning points and have directed you, even though you may not have realized it, to where you are today?
Probably having my son made me realize that, you know, how my parents were with me. My mum was definitely there all the time. I just wanted to be there for my son. Those years when they're growing up are so important, and you never get those back. But also traveling with my son made me realize there's more to life than work. Like, nobody's going to remember you for the last job you did, but my son will always remember me because I was there for him, and I still am. I home educate my son now. I mean, I don't do it all myself, but I just love. I'm not that mum that can't wait to send him back to school. I just love hanging out with him, and he is an amazing little human, and he teaches me so much, and I'm lucky to be his mum.
And he's 13 years old now, so...
In July. Yeah.
An interesting time in his young life too.
Yeah, he's I'm really lucky, actually. He's while I was doing up my house in lockdown and teaching myself to edit, he got into animation, and he is obsessed with animating. So he's got a passion, which is really great for a kid at his age. And I think it reminds me of me when I was in my bedroom with, you know, if I had a camera back then, I sure as hell would have been filming my model railway sets, doing something or other. But that's what he does with Lego, and he uses different mediums of, you know, little stick creatures. And he's just obsessed, and I love it.
And finally, Kerry, when I look at the playlist you sent me, and just so everyone knows, the music that we put on our Instagram account is often the playlist from our guests. So of your choices, musical choices, there's one there that stands out for me, and that's Fleetwood Mac's Go Your Own Way. Would that sum up your life?
Yeah, I think it would. Absolutely. Absolutely. Just, yeah, you do you. I'll do me. Or more, you just do you. Do your own thing. Do your own thing. And I think, yeah, like that little voice inside you, that instinct, that gut feeling, always follow it, because yeah, it's amazing. If you trust your gut instinct, it's amazing. Amazing.
And who knows where you'll be going in the future. We have to follow you on Instagram to keep up with you, Kerry.
I think it's exciting not knowing, actually. I think, you know, freedom for me is everything. And I think the whole world is slightly mad at the moment, and freedom is not something everybody has. And I just think that you need to be as free as possible and enjoy your life and be kind.
Kerry September, thank you very much for sharing some of your life with us on the show.
Thanks, Chris. It's been really, really, really fun. Thank you.
And as always, don't forget to check out the show notes, because we have links there to our guests' social media and to their website, where you can also find their playlist and a list of the women whose work they admire too. And some of those could be future guests here on the show. So check that out at any podcast app, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And also give us a follow on social media too. You can find us on Facebook at The Art Podcast, and also on Instagram. That's also at The Art Podcast. That's art with 2 A's, of course. Please leave us any messages, comments, questions, suggestions for guests. We love to hear from you. And you can always use email if you prefer. That's hollowellstudios@gmail.com. Don't forget, if you are on Apple Podcasts, please do leave us a 5-star rating and a review, because that helps others find the show, because it raises our rankings on Apple Podcasts, which is the leading podcast app still. Of all the podcast apps out there, that is the most popular one. But whichever app you prefer, we are grateful that you are listening. And I hope that you'll share it with someone that you think might enjoy the show too. Coming up on the show, I'm going to be talking to Marit van Ecklenburg, who is a Dutch macro photographer, and she photographs insects like you've never seen them before. And she does this all in her mother's garden. It's absolutely beautiful. So my thanks again to my guest this week, Kerry September. Until the next time, thank you for listening.